So Larry's an Algonquin from Shabat Obajiwan First Nation and is the Executive Director of Plenty Canada. And he's currently a member of numerous organizations, including the International Indigenous Forum for Biodiversity, the Conservation Through Reconciliation Partnership, the Ontario Biodiversity Council, the Ontario Professional Foresters Association, the Healing Place Partnership, the Indigenous Circle of the Canadian Biosphere Association, and serves as co-chair of the Lanark County Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Larry's a former three-time mayor and longtime council member of Lanark Highlands, and he was the first chair of the Rural Forum of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. He was the commissioner for the Ontario Human Rights Commission and was also on the Ontario Species at Risk Public Advisory Committee and provincial and national recovery teams for the American eel. He's also served as a comprehensive claim representative. He's a certified tree marker and butternut assessor and holds other environmental certifications. He's received an honorary doctorate of laws from the University of Guelph, and he was a humble student for many years of the late Algonquin elder grandfather William Commanda, who created the Circle of All Nations organization. So Larry lives in a 170-year-old log home on 500 acres of biologically diverse Algonquin land along the Mississippi River with his wife, Nancy.
We all express our gratitude, and there are some common denominators, even though the culture may differ. We're working with Quechua people in Peru, Taino in Cuba, Mayan people in Guatemala, and an underpinning, a common denominator is to take the time to connect to the land and to remember that everything isn't mental and physical, but it's also emotional and spiritual, and that we have to take time to make those connections. And during these COVID times, cultural underpinnings are especially important in the countries that we're working in, because people rely on public transit, and public transit just collapsed. And in terms of the kind of healthcare that we're used to in Canada, of course, it's always much more challenging to get good healthcare. So relying on elders and their knowledge of medicines, and then what our little about COVID in the languages. It's so important, at least with our partners, to work with Indigenous languages. And of course, it's very important in Canada, but it's that power of the language is something that we share as well. The work often centers around food, and women's role is prominent. So in all three of these countries, women provide leadership in a very strong and significant way. And in fact, in places like Guatemala, our work centers around women elders, who are the culture carriers. They're the ones that are passing on their knowledge of how to live on the land, within natural law, something that globally we need to do. It's the one law that we cannot violate. And when we do, we get into trouble, and Mother Earth corrects herself in the form of climate change and pandemics. So they really are a natural correction of the way we're living. And so culturally, there's an understanding among Indigenous peoples in the North and the South about these fundamental laws and about the importance of our cultural frameworks. And so our work centers around supporting the traditional ways of living on the land, the traditional ways of housing, of feeding ourselves, providing medicine. And once again, in the pandemic, the importance of these traditions has become even more evident. There are different prophecies that come from these cultures as well as ours, and they all say that it's that there will be changing times because we haven't collectively lived in harmony with the land and the water. And so we understand that even though we have different iterations, there's a common understanding about our role. And our role is to be thankful, to be grateful, and to let other forms of life to know that that we don't think we are superior. I'm thinking about Canada's conservation vision that work with Indigenous peoples, and the very first recommendation, the second bullet, is that we are one species among many who share the land, and to have that understanding with our Indigenous partners in the South is important. And so we know that when we exercise our responsibilities, when we give thanks to the land, the water, to the species that have been sharing this land with us for thousands of years, who've been life givers, we know that whether we're here in Canada or we're in Peru, Guatemala, Cuba, that when we exercise those responsibilities, we make things stronger for the whole world. And so I know of elders in the Northwest Territories who talk about the responsibility they have for their large bodies of water up there, that they do it for everyone in the world. So that's this old act locally, think globally. It's not something that emerged out of the 70s, 80s, or 90s. It's something that emerged thousands of years ago. And that's understood amongst our partners in the South. And we enjoy sharing our stories. The one good thing about the pandemic and technology, Zoom, is we actually have set up a few webinars where people at the grassroots, we organize ways that they can come and share their stories. And they've told us that in the difficult times, it means so much to have this solidarity of purpose, the solidarity of understanding. And so that's also something we've done of late, but it comes from this cultural relationship that we all have. And it's not, just to be clear, it's very diverse, but it has a common purpose, and that is to connect to our ancestors, think of future generations, and think of all of life that's around us and our responsibility to that life. So with that, I think I'll wrap up my remarks. I think I'm pretty much at the end of the what was scheduled for this particular section anyway. And I look forward to hearing more from the rest of you and closing up in an hour or so. So Chimigwech.
Thank you so much, Larry. And it's wonderful to see you out in the, I hope I'm saying it right, Nebi, in the water. I think it's a great reminder to us of the connection with the land. And thank you for giving us an overview of the work that Plenty Canada is doing, both in terms of reconciliation in Canada and how you're supporting Indigenous-led development internationally as well. So there's a bit more information about Larry to follow up on his presentation. So thank you again, Larry. And I'm already starting to see many of the connections across our presenters. And we'll hear more also from Dee next. But obviously the key messages around climate change, around Mother Earth, around cultural frameworks and languages. So this has been very interesting to hear. And now we're going to turn over to our last presentation before we then get into discussion amongst the panel presenters as well.